All right, let's get right into it. We all know about the plastic pollution problem, right? But what if I told you the solution wasn't getting rid of plastic, but actually using it? It sounds crazy, I know. But today, we're diving into a really cool scientific paper that does exactly that. It proposes a way to turn old plastic waste into a kind of super material that cleans our water. And look, this isn't some far off environmental issue we can just ignore. It's literally inside of us. A recent study found that a shocking 77%, almost 4 out of 5 people tested, had microplastics in their blood. These tiny particles are everywhere, which makes finding a real solution a massive priority. So, before we can really appreciate how brilliant this new solution is, we first have to get our heads around the true scale of this invisible invasion. And trust me, the numbers are pretty mind-boggling. Okay, so this is where it all starts. Every single year, somewhere between 19 and 23 million metric tons of plastic garbage finds its way into our oceans, lakes, and rivers. To put that in perspective, that's like the weight of thousands of skyscrapers. And all of that plastic is the raw material that eventually breaks down into the microplastics we're so worried about. And that massive global problem comes right back to us, to our dinner plates. Through the food we eat, the water we drink, even the air we breathe. Scientists estimate that the average person could be consuming up to 121,000 of these tiny plastic particles every single year. So, we've clearly got a problem. The big question is, why haven't we fixed it yet? Well, as it turns out, trying to filter out something so incredibly tiny on such a huge scale is just ridiculously hard. And frankly, our current methods, they just aren't cutting it. I mean, just take a look at our current toolkit. Coagulation, it gets less than 30% of the particles. Membrane filters, they do a bit better, but they are super expensive, they clog up all the time, and they create toxic sludge. And biological methods, they're just way too slow to be practical. So yeah, we desperately need a new game plan. And this is where the story gets really, really interesting. A team of scientists came up with this idea that sounds completely backward at first, but is actually brilliant. They asked, what if we could take the plastic waste itself and turn it into the very tool we need to clean up the mess? So meet the hero of our story, PETC. Now, what is it? Put simply, it's a special type of activated carbon. You know, the stuff you find in really good water filters? But here's the kicker. It's made entirely from recycled PET plastic. We're talking about old water bottles, soda bottles, that kind of stuff. And the way they make it is surprisingly simple. You just take that plastic trash, chop it up into little bits, mix it with an activating chemical, and then basically bake it in a super hot furnace for a couple of hours, give it a final wash and dry, and boom, you've got PETC, this incredible new filtering material. Okay, so we've got the material, but how in the world does it actually pull those tiny bits of plastic out of the water? Well, it's a really cool combination of a clever physical structure and some fascinating chemistry on its surface. Think of it as part trap, part magnet. So first, let's talk about the trap part. When they create PETC, the process gives it this incredibly porous, almost sponge-like structure. If you could zoom way in, you'd see it's like a microscopic maze, full of tunnels and little cavities. This creates a huge surface area that's just perfect for physically grabbing particles as they flow by. And you can literally see it working. This is what the scientists saw when they looked at the PET-C after they put it in contaminated water. Its surfaces are just completely covered in these little plastic spheres that it's caught. The physical trap works like a charm. But remember, it's not just a physical net. It's also a chemical magnet. The surface of the PETC is specially designed to have these different chemical forces. Now, you don't need to be a chemist. Just think of it like a powerful static cling that attracts nearby microplastics and then holds onto them so they can't just wash away. Okay, so all this sounds amazing in theory, right? But does it actually work? Well, let's check out the data from the lab because, honestly, the results are pretty spectacular. First off, it is fast. In just half an hour, the PETC removes over 60% of the microplastics in the water. And if you let it sit for about 12 hours, it gets pretty much all of them. We're talking nearly 100% removal. That's incredibly quick. And this right here, this is where you really see what this stuff can do. Look at this comparison. A standard filter material might hold about 2 milligrams of plastic per gram. A slightly better one gets close to 5. PETC, a whopping 139. It's not just a little better, it is in a completely different league. It's not even a competition. Plus, and this is a big deal, it's not a one-time use thing. For any filter to be useful in the real world, you have to be able to reuse it. The researchers found that even after they used it, cleaned it, and used it again 5 times, the PETC material was still over 80% effective. And that is absolutely crucial for making it affordable and sustainable. But you might be wondering, sure, it works in clean lab water, but what about the real world? Well, it works there too. The scientists tested it on actual water samples. It got over 95% of microplastics out of tap water, over 92% from lake water, and even in really complicated industrial wastewater, it still snagged almost 90%. This stuff has massive potential. So let's just step back for a second and look at the big picture here. What does a technology like this really mean for us? Because, it's so much more than just a new water filter. It's a whole new way of thinking about waste. And this right here is the absolute genius of this whole idea. For so long, we've been stuck in this vicious cycle where our plastic waste just creates more and more pollution. But this flips that completely on its head. It creates a virtuous cycle where we can take that same plastic waste, upcycle it, and turn it into the very tool that solves the problem it created. It's a truly circular solution. So this research really leaves us with a powerful and honestly a very hopeful question. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, hidden inside our biggest environmental problem, all that plastic waste, is the seed of its own solution. Could the very trash we're so desperate to get rid of actually become our most valuable weapon in the fight for clean water?